Welcome along to number 5 in the series of webinars on Wednesday. They're every Wednesday morning, 11 a.m. And we've been through a number of these already. Number 5, we're going to be talking all about identifying the customer need. And without further ado, therefore, let's kind of crack on. So thank you for joining us this morning. Just in the chat box, can you let us know your location, where you're calling in from, your profession, what will you miss most about quarantine? Because quarantine is not all bad. Some people are seeing positives in this for a way to really reflect on what's going on in their lives, in their businesses, their children and families, etc. Recognize some people are having a really hard time as well. But what will you miss most around quarantine? Be interesting to know that. In a nutshell, excuse me, my name is Keith Rosell, Sales Marvel. I'm a sales coach, and I'm also a visiting lecturer in professional selling at Aston Business Schools, one of the top business schools, or in the top 1% in the world. And I've worked in my corporate career with people like Hewlett-Packard, BT, EDS, and a whole host of SME businesses as well. I'm now working for myself, and boy, what a change of environment that is. Okay, so I've also worked around the world. Been fortunate enough to work in New York and in Tokyo, and so I hope I'm bringing to a bit of a worldly view on the world of business, certainly the world of sales, as it relates to the world of business. And I hope you're enjoying this series of webinars. Why Marvel? And just to let you know that it's not about a big fan of Marvel comics or anything, because that's not really my thing. But when I was on Canary Wharf, for about 25 years. I was known on the wharf as being Mr. Marvelous, because everything was positive and fantastic, and I had a wonderful time there. So that's some sort of connection with my sort of corporate history, if you like, as being Mr. Marvelous. And why Marvel? I do get asked that from time to time, and it's not because I'm a Marvel Comics fan. Anyway, moving on. So we live in interesting, well, really, they're extraordinary times, I would argue. So along came a virus, and to confirm new data out this morning, the UK economy contracted 2% just this last quarter. There's only been 1 week of that is reflected in terms of the lockdown period, so it was contracting anyway. It contracted a massive amount overall. Bear in mind, only one of those weeks was lockdown. We've only had 4 quarters that bad since 1953, when written records began. And the industries that are worst hit, it seems so far, is construction, services industry, which of course includes hospitality, hotels, restaurants, cafes, things like that, tourism industry, and manufacturing as well. And we saw last week that Heathrow Airport's passengers were down 97% year on year. It is truly extraordinary. So we also hear that TUI, the travel company, 100% exposed to the tourism industry, cutting 8,000 jobs worldwide. Some of those are going to be in the UK, others around the world. That's clearly bad news as well, amongst a whole slew of other bad news. But there are some growth sectors in amongst this COVID-19. There are growth sectors out there, and this, again, data that's out from the ONS this morning seems to be pharmaceuticals. Obviously, they're involved in the worldwide effort to find a vaccine for this COVID-19 virus. And in the world of paper and paper products, that is growing at 10% plus rates, which is extraordinary for that sector. And that's, of course, because the vast majority of us are working from home in some form or guise. I can tell you from personal experience as well that buying an office chair online at the moment, very difficult. So sales of office chairs for home use are they've really taken off as well. Okay, but it's not all bad, and there's some interesting things happening around the world. The CO2 emissions in India, for instance, have dropped And they're at their lowest level in 37 years. That's extraordinary and no bad thing. Planet gets a chance to breathe, and I really hope that's a sustained decrease going forward. Oil has gone negative due to the worldwide slump in demand for oil. So they will literally pay you to take it away. It's gone negative because the demand has dropped so badly. Okay, and Airbnb, one of those bastions of growth over the last 10 to 15 years, Airbnb are having to make something like 25% of their workforce redundant around the world. That is sad news, but they are also largely exposed to the hospitality, the tourism sector. Some business travel, but much of that has even stopped as well. So they're really, really badly exposed. And for the first time, having to make redundancies. And in the UK, we've seen confusion over the government announcement. I think it was a very clear piece of messaging at all. But we do know the furlough scheme has been extended by 4 months. It's now going to be extended out to October. Some businesses from the 1st of October, that begin on the 1st of August, are going to be expected to contribute to that furlough scheme. So it's not all going to be funded by the government, but as from the 1st of August, I believe some firms are going to have to pick up the tab for that. So some staff are going to be returning to work, but they need to feel safe. That's the overriding concern. They need to feel safe. And again, another bright light, Zoom. Now, a couple of months ago, some people hadn't even heard of Zoom. I'm very fortunate. I've been using Zoom for probably a couple of years now, ever since I discovered or realized, if you like, that I was spending more on BP and Shell, i.e. fuel, than I was on my own marketing efforts. So that stopped pretty quickly, and I love doing stuff on video now. I can do it from the comfort of my own home, and I would imagine there's a lot of you working from home now that possibly converts to. Some of you won't be able to wait to get back to the office. I kind of get that. That's the way the drums beat for you. So Zoom had 10 million individual unique users, if you like, just 2 months ago, as measured by daily logons. Guess how many they've got now? 300 million daily logons, and that's a real indication of change in the industry. Okay, so getting serious now. We're talking about deal qualification or understanding the client's needs. This pyramid, a number of you have been on previous webinars with me, thank you for staying with me for this course. There are, I believe, B2B business-to-business sales processes, 8 particular phases, some more involved and complex than others, but generally there are 8. They're listed on the left-hand side, but they're not in the right order. And so what I wanted to do is give an indication of where we are in this sales process. So we start out with value proposition, and the value proposition is all about what you do, how you do it, how your company makes money, your value proposition. And that was webinar number 2, albeit it's the first in the process. Excuse me. And next we come to go-to-market strategy. So we now know what you do, how you make money. Now we're going to decide what are the best sales channels that you're going to adopt to take your product, service, offer to market. And that's what we went through on webinar number 2. And then last week we talked about lead generation. And so not just lead generation, because a lead at the end of the day is just an opportunity to do a load of work for potentially no outcome. We can't afford to do all of that. So we want lead generation that's going to generate the right kinds of leads for your business. Next, we come to deal qualification, and that's what we're talking about today. It's what it's in big bold letters. Deal qualification, understanding client needs. And then quickly through the rest of the process, next week we're going to be talking about That's the 20th of May, 11 a.m. We're going to be talking about pursuit strategies. After that, we're going to talk about negotiation techniques. And negotiation is a life skill, not just a business or a sales skill. It's a life skill. Negotiation has to take place with all your relationships, be they children, siblings, parents, whatever it is. We're always negotiating all of the time. That's life as a human being. We're going to talk about closing the sale, actually getting clients to commit, putting pen to paper, as it were, and what's involved in all of that. And then the Sharp-Eyed members of the of you watching this will realize that actually that's not the last step in the process. So what is the last step? The last step is maximizing yield. So we've got a client to commit. We've got that client. We're generating revenue and hopefully profits from that relationship. Now we want to really capitalize on that relationship. And how can we get that member of our stakeholder community to be our silent salespeople, if you like, some referral marketing? Who do they know that's in the market, etc.? For services like ours, will they give us a case study or a recommendation? All of those things. Okay, now, and that brings us nicely onto the next slide, because you've probably established that there could be a whole load of work in going into identifying a customer's needs, depending on how complex the customer is, how complex the solution is that you sell. So there are going to be some customers, frankly, generally for lower level transactions, but they do happen where they don't want to go through a big routine like that. They just want to buy something. When you go into Starbucks, you probably don't need a great big narrative. You know what you want to buy straight away. So this slide is about perhaps giving you some pointers on what to do when it comes to things like that. After all, 70% of all the people that come to you have already made a purchasing decision of some kind or an inquiring decision of some kind, because they'll have done their research. They'll have maybe they narrowed it down to 3 people to talk to, of which you're one, and so they're going to have a conversation with you. So they'll have done lots of due diligence. That's the word I was looking for already. So being understanding how to uncover that bit of information could be really, really helpful. So don't put unnecessary barriers in the way of customers buying from you. And so don't ask them a whole load of questions that don't need asking. If they're saying, I want one of those sweeties from the jar up there on the 4th shelf, then it's probably reasonable that you just reach up and say, okay, that'll be whatever it is. So don't make it more complicated than it needs to be. That's the point. And so let them buy. Keep it simple. Check it. Now, those of you that have e-commerce sites, websites, I encourage you to look at the concept of frictionless trade, where you remove as many barriers from the customer journey, the customer experience, as possible in order to get them to buy. So I don't know if you can imagine, if you've ever been online, you think you've selected a product, you go to checkout and you're putting in your credit card details, and then it discovers you haven't got an account with them. You've not registered for an account. So it asks you to go through a load of questions. So you register, you get an account, you register, and then you're able to make your purchase. Well, I have to question the wisdom of that kind of process, because 70% of all transactions where they encounter final hurdles when they've sort of filled their basket and are on the website checkout process, 70% of those get abandoned, and they think, oh, yeah, never mind this, I'm going to go somewhere else, or I'm going to go down the shops and buy it. It's just easier. Bringing us onto this slide, and I am going to declare now, so you need to, you've probably seen this already, so now's the time to stop this video, and if you want to continue, you can do on part 2 of the slides from the rest of today. Thanks for watching thus far. I'll see you in just a minute on part 2. Thank you.